welcome to Rants Without Pants. My name's Adam Schaubel, and I'm here with my wonderful, well-behaved, whip-smart daughter, Zoe Schaubel. All right, we had a little bit of technical difficulties. Right, Zoe is a little bit of a diva. It's our show. So it's our show, not your show.
Our show. No.
Is it my show? Is it my show?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. You know why? You know why she said it's my show? It's because she's moving on to Rachel Maddow. As she was on the Rachel Maddow show, and it's gone to her head. You know, I have helped you with your career. I have helped you potty train. Yeah. So I'm just your stepping stone, basically, to bigger and better things. Is that the deal? Is that the deal? Okay. We had a last-minute change. We originally had a Trump supporter that we were going to interview, and unfortunately, she did bow out. At the last minute, we've got world-renowned astrophysicist Dr. Dan Hooper!
In order for this theory to work, it also has to follow some very specific rules. In particular, in order for this theory to hold together in a mathematically self-consistent way, the photon has to be exactly massless.
And are you getting tired? Yeah? I'm getting tired too. He also has a new podcast and a new book that you'd like to talk about as well. Talk about the media and the anti-science movement. And then, at the end, we've got don't lick the microphone. It's our music video. First, we need to hear from the 90s Packer team, because that's how we roll here at Rants Without Pants. She's all done.
Well, there's a town in Wisconsin. It's not quite as big as LA.
Brett Favre, the $1 Million Arm, has endorsed Donald Trump. So we can just chalk this up to another thing that Aaron Rodgers is better than Brett Favre at. That's right, voting. Is it really surprising that a man who sends dick pics to a woman that isn't his wife is voting for Donald Trump? So don't ever Google that, okay? Good. You don't know who Mike Holmgren is. He used to be the coach of the Packers. Holmgren wrote a thoughtful op-ed on why we should all vote for Biden. You were really. I don't feel like you're focused. Are you focused today? We've also got Leroy Butler, who said it was a moral choice. So there you go. The 90s Packers have spoken.
You Packers, go!
Last episode, I pleaded and I begged everyone to not vote for Trump, right?
Yeah.
What did I do? I said, please, don't do it.
No, do it.
And of course, most of you are already voted or made up your mind. So for those that didn't vote for Trump, God bless you.
Yeah.
And for those that did, it's okay to change your mind, even after you voted. Just remember that. And for those that didn't vote, vote. Go out and vote. Now on to our interview with Dr. Dan Hooper! Zoe, Dr. Dan Hooper is the author of your favorite bedtime story.
Right.
He's also a friend.
This is Dr. Dan Hooper, an astrophysicist at the Fermi Lab. He teaches at the University of Chicago. He has 3 books: Dark Cosmos, Nature's Blueprint, which is right here, and then his most recent book, At the Edge of Time. And we'll talk about that a little bit. He also has a podcast, Why This Universe, that he's also working on. And welcome.
Thanks, man. It's good to be. Good to see you.
Good to see you as well. So, Mr. Dr. Dan Hooper and I go way back. We were in some bands together. So we've got a variety of things I wanted to talk to you about. And I think the most interesting right now is what I guess would be described as an anti-science movement. I don't know if that's the best way of putting it. But why do you feel like this is happening, and do you see it?
Yeah, so my work as a scientist is not on a day-to-day impacted by this. If, before COVID, if I go to my office at Fermi Lab or in my office at the University of Chicago and I interact with all my colleagues and all my students and all the scientists up and down the chain, there's just no evidence of this. That's something that in my little ivory tower, I could entirely be oblivious to.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I have a public facing scientist role too. I write these books and I do this podcast and I give public lectures and stuff. And as a consequence, I get a lot of interactions with the, public who's generally interested in science. And just about every day, there's an email or two in my inbox from somebody who's either expressing some very out there non-scientific views on a scientific issue, or they're expressing their anger at me for somehow being involved in something nefarious science-wise. Mm-hmm. Maybe we all know the right answer to some question, but we're collectively lying about it, or
you're in cahoots with JFK Jr.
That sort of thing, yeah. Was JFK Jr. involved? Wow, I didn't know.
Yeah, that's the QAnon thing. But anyways.
Yeah, so this stuff, from my email feed, it's very obvious. You can see it on social media. I do some Twitter stuff, and a lot of it's there. And I'm sure if you went into places that are far removed from my ivory tower, you'd see a lot of it in just people you might happen to meet.
Mm-hmm. Now, do you okay, what about what you see on the news? Let's say COVID. Okay, I know you're not a doctor, a medical doctor, obviously, but in the sense of just science, right? You see people kind of by not wearing masks, kind of just saying, I'm going to do what I'm going to do, and I don't believe in it, or even don't care. I mean, what are your thoughts about that? And I mean, that's kind of a slap in the face to science, is it not?
Yeah. So like you said, I'm not a clinician. I mean, I'm a physicist. I literally have had zero biology training since high school.
I just want to talk about as a broad science, just science versus a thing that's happening.
But I do know enough to listen to the scientific community. So, I mean, we have certain people who are symbols of that, whether it be Dr. Fauci or Dr. Birx or something. But I don't even like it being boiled down to a couple of individuals, because that has, room to be abused one day. But you can ask, what do the, what does the overall scientific community say about something? And there's really no debate on any of these issues, not any substantive debate. The masks work, social distancing works. A lot of the things that have been put out there don't work, on social media and things. And,
herd immunity.
Well, I mean, herd immunity is a real thing hypothetically, but to get there, a lot of people would have to die. Mm-hmm. And the idea that we're going to just hop, skip, and jump to herd immunity is a deeply misinformed one. Again,
I don't know this from my own research or something or my own expertise. I just know this because that's what the people with the expertise uniformly tell me.
Mm-hmm.
So the other thing I would say is let's break people down into a couple different categories. There are those who like literally deny the scientific facts. They say, oh, I don't think masks work against COVID or something like this.
Mm-hmm.
That's one kind of anti-science or science denialism sort of attitude. But then there are people who say, no, it probably does work. It probably, that's all about right. But my civil liberties trump that. And as a consequence, I'm not going to wear a mask because I don't want to live in fear or something like this. And they'd rather just take the chance. And people do this with cigarette smoking. They might believe the experts who say it has a chance of killing them, but they smoke anyway, or maybe somebody doesn't wear a seatbelt.
Obviously, the difference is this affects other people a lot more than cigarette smoking, right? I mean,
yeah, there's secondhand smoking, whatever, but yeah,
sure, but that's
a good point. Yeah, you don't wear a mask for yourself; you wear a mask to protect other people. Yeah,
right. So, so let's talk about social media. What impact does that social media and just the use of the internet and everything else, because the internet is a very powerful tool that can do a lot of good, but it can do a lot of damage as well. So what thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I think it's part of a trajectory. Certainly social media has amplified this, but I think you could see the effects going back to the early 90s. If in 1980 you did some sort of survey, and I don't have the statistics on the top of my head, but I think if you look them up, you would find out that the vast majority of Americans got their news from their national news, let's say, from a combination of the major networks, nightly news, ABC, NBC, CBS. And all three of those more or less presented the same facts. And those facts were more or less correct in the consensus view of the people who knew the most, or the experts.
Right.
And I don't mean to say they never got anything wrong or something, but it was, responsible people trying to tell a coherent story honestly. And I think that gave our country a certain kind of cultural cohesion that had a lot of upside. And then a couple of things happened in the late 80s, early 90s. One is the advent of cable and the widespread availability of partisan cable media. Stuff that departed from that centrist consensus that the networks had previously provided. And also at the same time, there was something, I don't know the details of the law, but there was this thing called the FAIR Doctrine that said if you're using public airwaves and you want to have, an hour program that was partisan one way or the other, you had to devote an hour of your airwaves to the other side.
Yeah, both sides.
Right. And that was revoked. And with that came the blossoming of right-wing AM radio. And then later there were some efforts to do left-wing equivalents. And those exist, but they've never been particularly successful in comparison. And, many, many million of Americans listen to the right-wing AM radio on a daily basis. Even larger numbers listen to Fox News, or watch Fox News, I should say. And I think this has had a profoundly polarizing effect on our country. At the same time, there are people like myself, and my guess is you, Adam, who most of our media comes from people who have more or less our viewpoints. I read the Washington Post and New York Times every day, and those guys pretty much agree with me. And it makes it.
It matters if it's the analysis versus the reporting, right? That's where I would challenge you a little bit, because New York Times, Post. I would put moveon.org in a section more like Fox News, or MSNBC to some extent, which I don't like. I don't like MSNBC. I don't like moveon.org, honestly. But when I can read an article and go, I know that's horseshit, and they're leaving points out, whether it's from the left or right. And I'm not saying everyone is guilty of wanting to read and hear information that supports what they believe in, right? But
Good. And I am not trying to draw a equivalency between what the New York Times does and what Fox News does.
because it is different.
I wholly reject that
Yeah.
equivalency. New York Times is trying to give you a honest and nonpartisan view, but the fact is the people who work at the New York Times tend to be from a particular cultural vantage point.
Absolutely.
And therefore I think they have some blind spots they struggle with from time to time. I mean, like you, I grew up in a, well, I don't know if you'd call your background rural, but mine's rural.
Yours was really rural.
Really rural. Rural Minnesota.
You had yaks.
Well, about the time I left my house, my dad got yaks. So yeah, I did. But I did help build the yak farm. That's
okay.
True. So yeah, but like living in a place like that, people have attitudes and perspectives socially and culturally that, if they were to read the New York Times, they would immediately know that this is someone who doesn't get their values or their identities, or they would make cultural references to things they wouldn't understand, and vice versa. It's they're from it in the same way that if I read a translation of a French paper, there would be a lot that I would miss.
Yeah, I'm with you.
And like I sometimes think, like, I don't know, like so I mean, I'm for reasonable gun control, but somebody who grew up around recreational firearms, I can tell that the people writing the New York Times do not get what guns are used for in a rural environment.
Yep.
Things like this. So as the media has gotten more targeted, it also has become less effective at reaching across various partisan boundaries.
Yeah, I think that's a really actually great example. I personally, just a couple years ago, I took Carrie out and we shot guns, and it was great. I loved it. But they were handguns.
Was it her idea, or yours?
She's always wanted to. She never wants to again, but that was kind of on our bucket list of things that we wanted to do. I got a degree in police science, so I was firearm certified as well. So I owned a 9mm handgun. When
I was in the Army for 8 years,
and stuff like that. Yeah, go ahead.
And I was in the Army for 8 years, so I was pretty good with.
I forgot you were in the Army. But when it comes to like NPR, like to me, that's where I'm. It's almost the more boring it is, the probably better the data you're getting. The content you're getting. If you go on the Department of Health Services website and you read about the COVID cases, it's really boring, but it is exactly what it is, and I guess, so for me, it's more boring equals probably more reliable content.
Yeah, I mean, and I think, one can do data science style reporting, data journalism, if you will, in a way that isn't dull, but is still responsible. I mean, like you take something like Nate Silver's 538. They're not particularly prone. In fact, they're not prone at all to hyperbole or whatever. They're like, most of their articles are about how the media is overreacting to something. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, it turns out debates don't really move opinion very much. Here's the evidence.
Yeah.
Or, that big thing in the news last week, it probably doesn't matter. Here's why.
Mm-hmm.
So if anything, they're working against the hyperbole.
Yeah. And when people talk about the media, that's what they're talking about. And it's too bad because important things can get lost in the minutia, right? The important things that are a big thing, right? Can get lost with something else that to the equivalence seems like a big thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, and I do think like the media definitely gets a lot wrong in terms of how to best serve the public, but it's not necessarily the media's fault in the sense that, well, take this example, like when you pick up a random day's, well, not physical paper, but you go to some newspaper or you turn on cable news or you watch ABC or whatever, a huge fraction of the election coverage is on the horse race.
Mm-hmm.
I would argue you don't serve the public particularly well by covering the horse race.
Chuck Todd does this, and it bugs
Yeah,
the hell
and
out of me.
everyone does. Okay,
He's really into it. But anyways, I'm sorry, I'm interrupting. Go
yeah,
ahead.
yeah, no, there are lots of these guys are problematic in this way, and like, but they're doing it because that's what people click, you
Yeah.
know, so, and you know what, I don't want to tell anyone like what you really want are horse race stories. You can't have them; they're censored. Well, no, of course I don't want to do that. And by the way, I consume a huge amount of horse race coverage, so
Right.
you know I'm part of the problem. But would it be better for our democracy and our society if more of that coverage was about issues and about clarifying things, as opposed to about the election?
Mhm.
Yeah, totally.
Yes.
Totally.
The idea of policy, I always think like, why have the same people on the round tables? Like, why not have an expert for every single story? Have a nonpartisan expert that just,
Yeah.
just talks about, that is interviewed or they even, are part of the story, talk about it, versus these pundits that really don't know anything. They know like you said, they know the horse race and they know the, maybe what the outcome of something might be, or to play that up a little bit, but they're not the experts,
Yeah, I mean, I
which
would
kind of
love to
goes back to
see.
science, right?
I would love to see more economists, more scientists, more psychologists, more
Right.
on cable news or even nightly news, and maybe in closer consultation with the newspaper industry. I mean, that of course would be great, and I think very few people would argue against that. But I fear also that if those institutions started to do that, maybe they would get fewer clicks. Not that as scientists aren't fascinating. I mean, we are, trust me.
That's actually a great segue into your new book that I hear is amazing. I have read the first 2 books. And what's great about your writing is a layman like me can read it and understand it, and I do find it really interesting. And so
it's a book for the intellectually curious, but not necessarily, trained in any way.
Yeah, I'm not in that
science.
world. I'm not in that world at all, and I mostly got it. But I found the whole read, for both books very interesting.
I thought, well, there hasn't been a really good book about the early universe, the first moments of time after the Big Bang, since the 1970s, when this famous book called The First 3 Minutes was written by Steven Weinberg, who's one of my heroes as a physicist and a writer. And I'm like, well, okay, a ton has changed in all those decades. So I think this is my time. And so in a nutshell, I'm going to describe in this book to you what the universe was like when it was a fraction of a second old, and how it evolved and changed, and how we know, because we have empirical, direct observational evidence of all this. And then I'm going to say, well, okay, so we have this great theory, it works really well, but there are all these mysteries we don't understand. We don't understand what dark matter is. So 5/6 of the matter in our universe is stuff made that's not atoms, something that doesn't reflect, radiate, or absorb light. We don't know what the hell that is. Can I say that on your show?
Of course.
All right. And we don't understand why our universe is growing faster these days than it used to. We call that stuff dark energy, but we don't know what it is or how it works. We don't know why our universe is filled with matter. It should have all been destroyed according to our existing theories. And somehow it didn't. Somehow it survived. And fourth and finally, we have pretty good evidence that our universe kind of expanded in a burst at the very beginning. It underwent something we call cosmic inflation. And we don't have a clue like how that worked, what powered it, how it ended. These are all big mysteries. And I kind of play with ideas in the book about, how many mysteries do you need to line up, all pointing to one moment at a time before you think you might have something really substantively wrong. Like
Right.
maybe this is like a paradigm shifts moment. And, so there's a lot of mystery here. It's an exciting time in this particular field, in this particular area. And frankly, there's nothing more interesting than the Big Bang. So, it's an easy topic to make interesting.
Right. That's awesome. And where could people find that? Are you on Amazon? Is that the best spot? Does it
Amazon's
matter?
a great place if you don't want to give your money to those guys. You can go to the Princeton University Press website or go to your local. Best choice is go to your local bookstore, and even if they don't have it, have them order it because so especially in the era of COVID, they need your support.
No. Let's talk about, this just came up in the news and I only read the headline.
Is the Anita experiment involved?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know anything about that? Because I feel like if I don't ask you, so they're gonna the audience is just gonna be like, why didn't you fucking ask him? So I'm asking you right now about it and your thoughts on it.
Yeah. Okay. So I've
You don't
actually,
I mean, if you
no,
don't,
I've worked on it. I definitely have opinions.
I didn't know you worked on it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, okay. So Anita is a legitimate experiment. It is basically a big radio antenna on a balloon, and it goes around and circles around Antarctica.
Okay.
And there are these particles called neutrinos, which we know exist.
Yep.
And if a really, really high energy neutrino came along and just kind of skimmed through the edge of the Earth, it could interact in the ice to create a burst of energy, which would create radio waves, which Anita could see.
Okay.
So Anita, you should think of as a telescope trying to detect really high energy neutrinos. Okay. So some years ago, Anita saw two different events, and they look like the sort of things they were looking for, except instead of skimming the Earth, they go straight through the Earth, or nearly straight through the Earth, approximately straight through the Earth. And at these sorts of energies, neutrinos shouldn't make it through the Earth. The Earth should be opaque to neutrinos. So this doesn't make any sense.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm being honest, the most likely interpretation of this data is ice is more complicated than we thought, or something was going wrong in the interpretation of this data. But let's pretend that we're really confident that these events are real and they physically mean what they seem to mean. Then there's something that was able to go through the Earth that's neutrino-like, but it's not a neutrino. So I wrote a paper with Shalma Wegsman, who, by the way, is the co-host of my new podcast, Why This Universe. A little segue there.
Good.
So this was a research paper we wrote when she was an undergrad, and I was her research advisor. But we were proposing kind of an exotic scenario to explain these events, where there are dark matter particles that are really, really heavy out in space. They occasionally decay. And when they do, they create a very feebly interacting exotic particle that can travel through the Earth and occasionally interact to make these sorts of events. Do I think this is true? No. I mean, this is a long shot. Okay, this is a weird piece of data, and we're saying, well, hypothetically, it could be this. Okay, we know it's a long shot. Fine. Where the parallel universe stuff came from is from a paper, there's two papers. First, there was a paper proposing something called a CPT symmetric universe. I won't get into what those letters all mean, but in this theory, the Big Bang wasn't just a universe popping into existence. It was a universe and another, say, an anti-universe popping into existence together. Okay. And in that theory, yeah. In that paper, they predicted a very specific mass for the dark matter particle. Okay. And they had to make a bunch of assumptions to do that, but they did it. The second paper said, oh, if the dark matter were the same mass and those particles were accumulated in the center of the core of the Earth, they could decay, making the same sort of thing I just described with my paper with Shalma.
Got it.
So there are, so all, you may have seen headlines on Yahoo News or whatever about NASA discovers parallel universe. That statement is predicated on like a string of 14 different assumptions, 13 of which are unlikely to be true. And like, okay, there probably has nothing to do with other universes. I have nothing against other universes. I think other universes probably exist. However, this is not any compelling evidence.
You're breaking a lot of nerds' hearts right now. I mean, I just want to, including mine. This is just,
I'm a heartbreaker.
You're a heartbreaker. I've always said that about you. So, why this universe? Explain to me about that podcast.
Yeah, so I've always, always wanted to
Why
do a
podcast?
Science. I've always wanted to do one, and I like popular science, and there are a couple of good science podcasts out there I like, but I thought there were some pretty big gaps in them too. Like there are some things that people might want that weren't being done, and frankly, I didn't have the technical know-how to do it. And then Shalma Wegsman, who was undergrad at University of Chicago at the time, and I are doing research together. We're meeting every week or so to talk about the progress in the research project. And like, as her advisor, I asked one day, like, okay, so what classes are you taking next quarter? And she says, oh, physics this, astronomy that. And also I'm taking a class on the introduction to podcasting. I'm like, oh, so cool. You have to tell me all about that. And she did. And over the course of the next quarter, like she produced some pretty cool stuff.
Sounds great. I think it's produced really well.
Yeah, I'm thrilled with the quality of the production, and Shalma's doing all of that.
Yeah.
But she also knows the physics.
It sounds high quality. It kind of has the music in between, is kind of Radio-lab-ish.
I love the music.
I do too.
So the music is, it is. It's Shalma's boyfriend is a electronic music guy.
And just
go ahead. When she told me like, so my boyfriend makes music, so like we're gonna try that, and like, oh no, it's gonna be terrible. But I was super wrong. It's just great. It just works.
You got
really
the
well.
1 out of 100, right? When
it was
someone
a small
says that,
chance.
my boyfriend is a musician. You got the good one.
Yeah,
that's good. Because the music's pretty cool.
All of my former girlfriends who said that it didn't work out nearly as well.
Right. Can you say? Sometimes I think to myself,
The sound.
what's dark matter?
The sound.
So Zoe, of all the matter in the universe, of all the stuff in the universe, only about that much is made of stuff that we can see. That much is made of stuff we can't see. We call that stuff dark matter. We don't know what it is, but guys like me, we try to figure it out. So far, still not sure.
Bye.
Bye, Zoe.
Rocket chips.
Bye.
Can I first say then, thank you to my wonderful wife for all the help she has put into helping with Rants Without Pants. She's been great. Thank you, and I love you.
Free from a Saturday morning, I put the pedal to the floor, headed north on Mills Avenue, and listened to the engine roar. A girl named Kathy owns a little of my time. 6 cylinders underneath the hood crashing and kicking. I listen to the engine whine. I am gonna make it through this year if it kills me. Come on. I am gonna make it through this year if it kills me. Harmonica solo. Here we go. I drove home in the California dust. I could feel the yellow all inside me. Pictures of the stepfather's face. Ready for bad things to come. On down, I shifted in the golden driveway. And the motor screaming out, stuck in second gear. That man might imagine in the navigator and your air engine. And dancing in Jerusalem this year. This year, if it kills me, last time, Zoe, I'm gonna make it through this year. If it kills me, enough money, we're going. I am gonna make it through this year. If it kills me, I am gonna make it through this year. If it kills me, I am gonna make it through this year. If it kills me, I am gonna make it through this year. If it kills me, yeah.
Channel the you of you.
Thank you for watching. So, as always, God bless you, God bless the state of Wisconsin, and God bless these United States of America.